Hi everybody, Max Lucado. May God bless you today. May He give you strength. May He lift you up. He's going to walk us through this, but sometimes it sure seems like a long walk, doesn't it? Have you noticed how so much of what we feel feels like sadness? Feels like grief? Feels like we've lost someone we love? That deeply painful sense of disappointment. Have you noticed how the sky just seems perpetually gray and that every so often we want to have a good cry? That's called sadness. And the reason that what we're feeling feels a lot like grief is. It is. And I want to talk to you about coping with this sense of grief, this sense of loss, this sense of sadness. Not everybody is feeling this, and if you're not, I don't need to take up 4 or 5 minutes of your time unless you just want to hang around. God bless you. Put your prayer needs on our page. We'll do our best to pray for them. But if you can relate to this sense of sadness, sometimes if we call something what it is, then we know how to deal with it and we know how to pray about it. So I think I just would like to announce that some of us, many of us, most of us are sad. You see, sadness or grief at its core is an unmet expectation. An unmet expectation. Maybe an inarticulated expectation, but it was an expectation that was down in there somewhere. We expected to always have grandma and grandpa around, and when they passed, we were sad. We had hoped they would be here. We had hoped to always have the dog. When the dog died, we were sad. We grieve, we cry because there's a sense of loss. A loss of not just what we had, but a loss of what we will not have. Those tomorrows are gone, and we're sad. That's natural. That's right. That's, in a sense, good because it means that we loved somebody. Now, not everybody deals with sadness in the same way. Not everybody deals with grief in the same way. You know, most of us have been taught about and have taught about the different stages of grief. There's anger, there's denial, then there's anger, and then there's bargaining, and then there's sadness, and then there's acceptance. They're all different levels, all different stages. These do not come in that order, by the way, and they don't always come over a period of time. Sometimes they come in all at once. Keep in mind the people with whom you live, they may be dealing with sadness and they're at a different stage. I mean, you may be at anger and they're in denial. And it probably doesn't help for you to be angry at them when they're really denying that this is going to have any impact on people. It's time, folks, for us to stoke up on a lot of compassion and patience, one with the other. But understand that people all respond to this differently. And understand also that you may be responding differently than you thought you would. You thought that if anything like this happened, you were going to, bulldoze through it and be okay. Hey, listen, cut yourself some slack. Cut yourself some slack. None of us have ever been down this road before. None of us. I mean, I'm at that point in my life where some of the young guys are saying to me now, when you went through such and such, what was it like? Somebody the other day said, what was it like when you went through 9/11? And those of us who were alive and who were active in society at the time, remember how horrible, how challenging, how difficult that was. But we could come together and we could encourage one another. But we at least could see the enemy. We had our society had been down this road before. We have not been here. As a result, we're feeling overwhelmed, and that leaves us with a sense of loss. We're sad. So just 2 thoughts, and I'll be done. Okay, 2 thoughts. Number 1, let yourself be sad. Just do it. I'm not sure our society does a good job in expressing grief. I mean, we kind of, have the funeral, have the burial, And then we move on pretty quickly, where other societies will dedicate 40 days or even a year to a season of grief. I remember reading in the Old Testament the story about David when Saul and Jonathan were killed in battle. Remember, Saul was King David's enemy. Even so, David, the author of the Psalms, the man after God's own heart, he mourned the loss of Saul and Jonathan. In the book of 2 Samuel, he and his entire army tore their clothing. They wept aloud. They fasted until sunset. Here's what he said: "May there be no dew or rain on the mountains of Gilboa. May their fields produce no grain. We loved Saul and Jonathan and enjoyed them while they lived. They are together even in death. They were faster than eagles. They were stronger than lions." David not only sang this dirge, but he ordered that the people of Judah be taught this song. You see, grief is not something to be, soft-pedaled or glossed over or passed over. Face it, fight it, question it, condemn it, but don't deny it. Don't suppress it. Don't try to drink it away, and don't try to run away from it. Don't pretend it's not there. The wise man in the book of Ecclesiastes said, there is a time to mourn. There is a time to mourn. So mourn. So mourn. But do not mourn like people who have no hope. Remember that beautiful passage, speaking of David, who wrote the 23rd Psalm. Remember that promise that he gave us. He leads me through the valley of the shadow of death. You know, as one who has officiated so many funerals in my life, I can't count. I always turn to that passage. I always turn to that passage as a tool for comfort to give to people when they're grieving. And I highlight that word through. He leads us through the valley of the shadow of death. He doesn't leave us caught or stuck in it. In fact, in order to lead someone through it, you got to take their hand even before it begins. And you walk them, you lead them. That's how the sheep would follow the shepherd, right? Just step by step, turn by turn, moment by moment. And so God has you by the hand, my friend. God has you by the hand. And He's going to lead you through this. He gets you through this valley of the shadow of death, or this sense of sadness. He's going to get you through this. Oh, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Don't suppress this sadness. Let yourself weep. Let yourself weep as much or as often as you want. But please don't allow this sadness to take over. Don't allow it to take over. Call some friends who are going through similar things and ask them for encouragement. Talk to your Heavenly Father about it. And be honest with the people in your world. Just say, folks, I'm just kind of sad right now. You have to bear with me. But please, defy despair. This is my final thought. Defy despair. Don't you give in for a second to that thought that says you're never going to get better, because you are. By God's goodness, you are. We get through these things with God's help, and He's going to get you through this. All the best, my friend.